world of 1916 was complex. Well, the world of 1945 was complex. The world of 2016 is intensely complex. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're going to be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders. You'll be dealing with politics and economics. And you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously.
Weather's changing here in North Idaho. The evenings are literally down to where it's like fall. We've got the carnival in town, or the fair already. It's hard to imagine that if you're down in Arizona or Texas or some of the others as warm as it is, but it's nice and cool here, even though it gets a little warm. We actually had 45 the other night for the first time, so that tells us things are changing. Well, changing they are. Tonight, called the show Lock, Stock, and Barrel. Now, so, different ideas about what that means, but the point of it is something's all sewed up. And that's exactly where the New World Order believes that they have us. Now, the ace in the card is those who understand who God is and His Son know that there's going to be something different. Now, is there going to be tribulation? Absolutely. Is there going to be problems? Absolutely. And we're already dealing with that. You need to remember that here in the United States, that things are somewhat quiet on the front. Other countries, we saw the influx of those coming into Germany and Holland, Switzerland, and other countries that were supposedly the refugees, and the chaos that ensued after. Well, that's still going to continue here. We just haven't seen it on a full scale yet. And so, in other countries, tribulation has already started. Whether you want to accept it or not, it is a fact. And I don't like it, but it's the way it is. Now, I want to go over a couple things here. The FEMA camps, or the political, realignment facilities, concentration camps, especially like the one in southwest of Wilcox, Arizona. There were 4 more that were established immediately right after the opening of that. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get everything ready for the 2016 elections. Now, Obama authorized through executive order the opening of these. Now, they were established, but to actually bring them up and man them is what he did. So there will be 12 full-running FEMA camps September 1st, 2016. All right? Now, I've mentioned that the homeless here are missing. Shopping carts, everything else, all of a sudden we're just there in the streets, no one with them, tipped over. You know how they are when they have their belongings and those things. That's the way it's been going in Spokane, just to the west of me here. Now, these FEMA facilities that are being readied for September 1st, 2016 is Wyoming, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi, Alaska, Iowa, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Nevada, and Florida. Now, and then again, we've got the one in Wilcox, and then there were 4 that were being done with that. So, there's a lot more of them. They're not all in the same category. Some are just intakes for reprogramming. Some of them have the guillotine. Some of them have the devices, like Julie was talking about. You get down towards Yuma, towards southern Arizona. They've developed that down in there. Now, the other is that those that are being taken in, that are homeless, are all mandatory RFID chipped now. Now, this re-education, this altering of who they are is only going to work for so many. Many of the homeless are actually, quote, certifiably mentally ill. It's unfortunate, but it's a fact. and there's really not much you can do with them, especially in the order that they're doing. Now, many of them, of course, are dealing with spiritual issues. They have curses upon themselves from their families. There have been many that came across the wrong people and then were cursed. But whatever the situation is, they're in very bad shape. And so they're not going to really be able to do anything with them. And so we then understand that there are the coffin vaults that are for the mass genocide that has been purchased by FEMA, Department of Homeland Security. These vaults literally can hold 3 to 5 humans, depending on the age, depending on the size. And they call them coffin liners, but a coffin liner actually is bowed on the top. Now, you might remember some of the old-time luggage, the lockers that you could travel with. And you'll notice that some of them were actually bowed on the top, kind of like a bow of a boat. They had a bow to it. And that was for the rich and famous. That was for the ones who could afford to have those made. And the reason they did that was so that nobody could stack another piece of luggage on top of it. So if anything, it was the luggage that was always on the top, and then that way it wasn't damaged or crushed from all the others whenever they took their long ocean liner. You can imagine what they did in the old days. But the point of it is so these things were meant to be stacked. Now, there's facilities that are already dug, that are already ready for these, for genocide, for releasing, for those things of psychotronics that they want to do onto us. Now, we also need to understand that this issue of the bullets has not gone away. Now, I have what's called a GSA. I'm actually registered on FedBiz. I've qualified to be a contractor. Now, I've never done anything with it. I had, other businesses at one time. And so I still get the call or the emails to the bids that are out there. So I personally see these. Okay, this isn't hearsay. This isn't something off the internet. Bulletproof vests, flat jackets, bullets, gas masks, all kinds of bids are going out in massive numbers by the federal government. So on FedBiz, another purchase came through of 95,000 more rounds. But see, here's the thing. You need to remember these are hollow points. Now, this adds to the total of 1.6 billion rounds. This ranges everything from 40 Smith & Wesson, that's .40, if you were to do a caliber on it, 180 grains, and of course the 9mm Luger, standard 9mm jacketed hollow point, 115 grams, the grains, and then the .223, 55 grains, and now there's a new purchase coming through of shotgun shells. All right, now these bullets are being stored all over the United States. And pretty much everyone knows that a hollow point is a very vicious bullet. I mean, no bullet is kind, obviously. But these are for stopping, these blow, these tear, these rip, these explode body parts. And that's a pretty bad thing to think of ever doing to a human body. And then we have to address the fact that this is the government storing these here in our own country, so that when those who come in, whether they're mercenaries, whether they're the blue helmets, whatever the situation is, that they can reload, they can restock by going to these cash places, meaning like these strip malls, the economy's bad, so there's strip malls where there will be buildings that are vacant. Well, that's where they're being stored. And then we look at the Walmarts and what they're doing with them. Now, here's what's interesting, gun sales. Okay, on 9/11, back, when that took place, in September, right at September 11th and on, there was a surge of gun sales of 750,000 that took place during 9/11. Now, you think that's a lot. Literally within days of the first election of Obama, 1 million surge in firearms being sold. All right? You think that's a lot. Then we come to Obama's second election. It surged to 2 million guns within that month. Now, here's what's interesting. Okay, then the numbers drop back down again. 1st of December of 2015, it surged back up to 1.5 million. And it's still continuing to go up and down. Now, that's a lot of firearms. But, for anyone who does not have a firearm or doesn't think they need one, at the very moment that you do need one, you're going to wish you had it. I've told some stories before that when I was doing sheriff's work and stuff, only one time did I ever pull my weapon, but as a civilian I've pulled it twice to protect myself. And believe me, they were situations that could have turned very ugly if I had not had my gun, and that way I still have my teeth, my head has not been cracked, my eyes still work, and I have no broken bones. Okay? So I was able to defuse a situation because of the display of ordnance, being able to protect myself. Now, we look at New Orleans, Katrina, okay, the HARP weather-controlled opposition against that state, the explosions that took place that brought the dikes down to flood in New Orleans, the French quarters. Then from there was a massive gun confiscation of legal guns from owners who were still on high ground, who still were able to maintain their place and wanted to protect it, but the guns were taken. Now, we saw the same thing with the Boston Marathon, the Boston bombing. They went house to house, Watertown in particular, where they went virtually, and this was after the guys that they framed, they had them. They continued this. They continued martial law. You weren't allowed out of your house, and they confiscated guns. And once they get guns, they don't give them back. They just don't. Now, the last show I talked about Cascadia Rising of 2016, the FEMA drill, and how they were interacting with hams to use communications for the emergencies and everything else. And I've mentioned before that Katrina, they were actually jamming the hams. They wanted nothing to do with them running emergency communications. Now, you need to remember they have racist areas. It's groups within the hams that'll go into a hospital, that'll go into emergency facility, that'll go into disaster areas and set up communications so they can bring the helicopters. They know where to bring the ambulances. They know where to bring the food and the water, and the injuries and stuff. It's very important. Congress, before, what they are now, established amateur radio, hence ham radio, and their definition was to supply the very much needed radio operators and technicians to continue operations during emergencies. And that is what a ham is. That's what an amateur radio operator is. And of course, it's a hobby that's become, and I'm one too. So that's why I know so much about it. I wouldn't want to be without communications, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that again tonight. And just understand that, the knock at the door and the government says, "Hi, I'm here to help you," that is a lie. Okay, as I've been doing the show for Freemasonry, I've been demonstrating to you that those who are in office that are Masons, and it's across the board, doesn't matter whether they're male or female, whether they're Eastern Star or Rainbow or whatever you want to call it, the point of it is they have sold their souls. And they are in agreement to cause the United States to be something other than what we, the people, are. And they've sold us out. They sold us out a long time ago. We've been under that curse a long time. Now, as I mentioned before, you'll have people say, well, if you just store food and water, they're just going to take it from you. Okay, well, it might take 10 days. It might take 30 days before they come and take it from you. In the meantime, you don't have power. The stores have been rampaged, and you're without food and water. Now you're sick. Now you're not feeling good. Winter's coming. Easy to get colds. Easy to get the flu. Easy to get pneumonia. You need to keep your strength up. So anybody that buys into that, that happens to you, then that's your own fault, because I'm telling you, store food and water. Not only that, but any medicines, okay, something to control fever, colloidal silver, different things to help you with infections. And again, I'm very strong on communications. You know, if you're just going to go down and get these FRS, GMRS radios, then get those, if that's all you can afford, or whatever. If you are interested in amateur radio, go to the ARRL.com site, and they'll hook you up for what it takes to get those licenses. You know, I'm able to talk around the world. I'm able to talk into the next state. I can use local communications that have all the clarity of police radios and fire radios, that of cell phones. I can do what's called packet. I can do APRS, which means I can track my friends who are hams. I know exactly where they are in a GPS. And on a touch screen, I hit it, and it'll turn into a GPS and take me to them. Okay, so we can track each other. And all this stuff is available. And it is without the cell phone communications, the cell phone networks, all right? So, you know, the other thing, too, is a lot of people don't think about fuel. You know, that's a case by case, whether you're capable of that. Some of you live in apartments. Some of you can only store so much. But just think, you know, a couple days of having something is better than not at all. And then, of course, you know, any firearms and ammunition. Because if you do have something, there will always be someone that wants to take it from you. So, again, I finished up yesterday on the Freemasonry. And I did a little presentation on Diane Reedy. She was the court reporter or stenographer of the House of Representatives that was removed off the floor after she boldly became what men should be, and that is to profess the word of God to those who are evil, meaning that those who were within that office are Masons, are acting as Masons. It was established as Masons. This country is not under God. We would like to think so, but it is not. It is a house divided. And the other side is definitely Lucifer, and those who believe in God and Jesus Christ are on the opposition. So, and I'm going to play her clip one more time here. I believe that she deserves it. I have more trust, admiration, respect for her than I do any gutless, spineless pastor or one who calls himself a pastor in this country. I have no respect for them whatsoever. They have blasphemed the name of Jesus Christ. They have lied to you. They have put you in bondage, and they have made you right for the slaughter for these days. Now, those who don't believe in God or Jesus, well, okay. That's part of what we're trying to do here, is to show that we are those who do believe, and we do care, and we do have answers. We're not just going to give you some ridiculous doctrine that means absolutely nothing. This is a life-saving forever, meaning the second death. Now, as I go into some of this too, what's going on with Hillary, what's going on with Goldman Sachs and Big Pharma and everything else is still continuing. The body counts are still racking up. And again, when I just talked about the FEMA camps, whatever's going to happen here, whether Hillary even gets a chance because of what Obama's doing with the executive orders, the point of it is that they're trying to make us divided. So you've got the liberals and the Democrats, you know, sticking with Hillary regardless of who she's been revealed to be. And then you've got those who call themselves conservatives or even profess to be Christians that are trying to jump on the Trump wagon. Now, does Trump talk about the FEMA camps? Does Trump talk about the chemtrail? Does Trump talk about the cyclotronics? Does he talk about the railroad cars that are 3 stacks high that have shackles that are here to transport U.S. citizens to the FEMA camps? Does he talk about the guillotines? Does he actually talk about Obama himself and what he really is? And does Obama really state that he's going to clean things up. No, the things that are very important to us are not addressed. That's your first clue, because a true man who has the best interest of the citizens of this country are going to reveal the facts, and he is not doing that. And you could say, well, he's playing the game. Yes, he is. And he's doing a very good job of it. And there you go. So, anyways, hang on, Julie. I want to play this again. And I want everyone to understand that Diane Reedy, that what they did on the radio or on the TV when they showed the newscast, they showed her on the floor when she got up from her desk, and then she very quietly walked over to the speaker's desk or the podium and started, giving what the Lord was telling her to talk about. She had struggled with it for some time. She'd gotten, she got words of knowledge and visions, and, the Lord was coming to her and telling her, this is what I want you to do. And she was obedient, and she did it. Well, what most of you don't know is when you watch it, what you're actually seeing is a dubbed audio of when she was in the hallway being escorted into the elevator, and they drug her off the floor, and they were taking her away as if she was arrested. And so as the cameras were going in the hallway and to the elevator, the words you're hearing, that's what she was saying. What she actually said on the floor was removed, and they dubbed it in to make you think that that's what she was saying on the floor, and that's not the case. She basically started out with, the house divided will not stand, God will not be mocked, and those things that would have been more specific to the Freemason and the curses, and that God knows and that he understands that everything is a lie and he's not going to tolerate it anymore. Okay, but what you're going to hear here is what was in the hallway.
He will not be mocked. He will not be mocked. Don't touch me. He will not be mocked. The greatest deception here is this is not one nation under God. It never was. Had it been, it would not have been. No. It would not have been. Constitution would not have been written by Freemasons. They go against God. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve two masters. Praise be to God, Lord Jesus Christ.
Now, I don't know whether you noticed or not, but you kept hearing them saying Molly, and her name's Diane, so whether that was a nickname, I don't know. But I've seen her interview with her husband, and they gave details of the whole thing. And the end result was they basically hauled her off to go to a psychiatrist. And I understand that the psychiatrist was a woman who actually was a believer and just simply wrote it off as anxieties and did not play the game to have her committed. So she was obedient. She did what she was called to do. And as I mentioned before, she will be hearing, well done, good and faithful servant. Now, I wanted to mention that last show for the Freemasons on Scott Hensler Network, that is actually my last show. I'm going to be moving that now to everything on tinfoil. So that means on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Julie and I will be on, and I'll be on tinfoil on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I want to reduce costs a little bit, so I'm going to combine the two together, because right now I'm paying for two different blogs. And if the listenership goes up, then I can put that money towards more bandwidth, because it may be one of the problems that some are having to listening. With more people listening, it draws more band, and so that then has to be addressed. So, anyways, so Julie, I've got you unmuted. Again, as usual, it's Friday. Pick up where I left off, or throw your own 2 cents in. Go ahead.
Well, I have to say, when I heard Diane Reedy speak last night, and I know that wasn't exactly what she said on the floor because they cut that out, but wow, that was amazing. It was just a great way that you ended the show last night, and God bless Diane Reedy. And I agree, wherever she is right now, whatever she's doing, I hope she knows that she's thought of well by a lot of us, And she's a hero for what she did, standing up and saying what she said. Can you imagine actually doing that? You're standing up before the Congress. I mean, I can't even imagine standing there, much less getting up and taking over a microphone. That has to be tough. But she did it, so more power to her. And I think all of us are going to be put in a position to do the very same thing, don't you, Scott?
Absolutely. And reminding, too, that actually was back in 2013, so it's been a little bit. I don't really have any updates on her, but I know that interview is still there with her and her husband. If you just want to Google that or go onto YouTube, you'll find it. It's very easy. And, again, anyone that holds that position is going to be educated, going to be learned. No one just gets it. So she also was there to see the facts. Now, by the way, that was while they were voting to raise the debt ceiling, okay, putting us in bondage. That's what they were voting on when she did that. So you know how they just kept extending that. And of course, Obama's done the same thing and keeps putting us more and more in debt. And then we have to understand that what they're doing is virtually taking our money, giving it to the Federal Reserve, and then the Federal Reserve sells it or gives it back to us with interest. And it's in that interest of accumulating that we bring ourselves into debt. And of course, with the fiat dollar, producing money that has no backing, again, this is all by design, and it's been all the Masons all along. Just look at the dollar bill. So, yes, I have a great respect for her, and again, she's more brave than any pastor that I know. Go ahead.
Yep, I couldn't believe it. But you know what? The people like her that spoke out, in that type of circumstance, I think maybe her, just bringing it to light and letting people hear that, maybe it will inspire others to go ahead and stand up for what they believe in and don't allow, because I've just noticed, Scott, that people in this country, they talk about stuff, but they don't do anything. It's just weird. I tell people, don't you do anything? Do you call your governor? I don't know. What do you do? But people don't think, well, there's nothing we can do about it. But, if everybody did something, then nothing that's going on right now would be going on. It's just a small few that are actually causing all these problems. Really, it is. Just a very small amount of people that are actually causing these issues, and nobody knows that. They think it's this great big conglomerate. Well, there's more of us by the millions over than there is of them. We could easily take down this entire government. Wouldn't be that hard to do. But there again, people are, I have to work, and I do this and that, and I don't feel, it's just, I don't know, Scott, it's just kind of depressing because you want to do something, but you have people say, yeah, I agree. And then they go back and flip on the ball game and get a six-pack of beer and eat their Frito pie and, they don't do anything. But I have to give my hat off to her that she did that because I think that she was very brave to do that. And everybody's going to have to say something at some point. So one of the things that I was going to bring up was the legislation that they're enacting and the stuff they're doing, but I don't know if everybody's aware of what's going on. I noticed that this transgender bathroom thing's getting thrown back up in the media, directed at different places. Well, that's just to keep you busy while they're doing the other stuff. And like you said, Scott, he signed the executive order to get all those up and running. So everybody who lives in any state needs to bring up their legislature, their government, whoever they in their own state, and there needs to be a whole bunch of you from each state do that. Start calling and saying, oh, so now you've got these things going on here. Let's see, the Queen of England said, you know, this is your final Christmas last year. David Rockefeller said, you know, you're a bunch of dumb shits, is what he said, and you deserve what's coming. I mean, come on. He calls people that kind of language and nobody does anything. Right there on the air, like on international television, and nobody does anything. He called you, everybody, the same, you know, and then you guys are opening FEMA camps and manning them, and we see the evidence of tanks and all this stuff all over the country, and then you open these FEMA camps. What do you think we are, stupid? You know, and people have to start putting all these facts on the table to their legislators. I mean, be a squeaky wheel and say, so now we know that no matter how much you defend a bathroom issue, what's it going to matter when everybody's going to be in a FEMA camp getting beat up or heads getting chopped off? Nobody cares about a bathroom issue then. You're just doing that to keep us busy, sending Hillary's clones around making trouble. Well, I got news for every governor, every single person in legislation everywhere that's going along with this situation. Diane Reedy spoke the truth. God will not be mocked. And I'm going to tell you, all of you, I don't care if you wear a badge. I don't care who you are. You wear a badge and you're on the wrong side of the Constitution and you come around here, I'll take your ass out. Because guess what the Constitution says? People like me form a militia. And when you break the law, we have the right to stand up to you. It's called resistance. Becomes duty. When tyranny becomes law. That's what our right is. And guess what? I will take you and your badge out if you step on my property and you're breaking the law. And if it's any laws that Obama or George Bush, the Patriot Act, all those are illegal laws. They're illegal. Okay, none of them were passed legally. That Constitution stands in the minds and hearts of every person that I know in this country. And we will not go down without a fight. And you may kill us, but remember, my dad, when somebody says, my dad can kick your dad's butt, my dad already kicked your dad's butt out of heaven. And that's why you got him down here. And you're on the menu next. And if you take me out, I'm coming back with him. And I'll be riding a white horse with swords. And guess what? You can't kill me then. And I will be helping kick you straight in the lake of fire. So you people out there that are complicit in this, you better know there's a lot of us that are going to turn and fight. And if you care about your family, you sheriff's deputy, you police officer, CIA, I don't care who you are. If you care about your families, you better wonder, because you know what? We know how to shoot, and we will kill you. If you come at us, we're coming at you. We will not stand down. And I advise every person in this country, arm up, and you better be ready, and you get some food put away. But do not comply with this government. It's a rogue government. It's illegal. You know what? You know what they've done? They are killing old people. They are taking citizens off the streets who are mentally ill. Many of them are veterans of the United States military who gave it all. The reason they're on the street is because they're crazy now. They're lulu because of what this tyrannical government did to them and sent them into a place they had no place being, and they didn't saw things they should have never didn't saw, and now they can't get right in their head. And that's why they're walking the streets. And what do they get in return? They get a kick in the pants and they get sent to a FEMA camp and they get tortured and killed, or they become a human robot so they can go out and hurt other people. Well, I say I rebuke you, every one of you who have done this to these homeless people. You know what? God is mad. The Creator is angry, and His wrath is soon to come on this nation. And you know what? People like us are protected against everything because we have a job to do. And when our Father is done and we're done with our job, then he lets us go home. Y'all want to take us out? We're going home. But you won't kill any of us. You won't do anything to any of us unless our Father says that you can. And if it's his will, we go with that as well. So you better understand something, every one of you. If Lucifer is your father, read the Bible. That makes you a bastard. And read what happens in Deuteronomy to those that have the curse of the bastard. Go read, because that's your end. That's where you're going. But you know what, Scott? Everybody in this country needs to step up and say no. Because you know what they're doing? They're hurting people. They're murdering people. They're taking innocent people out of their homes in Los Angeles. And when you know, they're all of them are here undocumented, right? So there's no proof, and they're terrified, whatever. So they take them out of their homes. They remove their children. They take the adults to the FEMA camp by Yuma, okay, dispose of them there, put the children into the sex trafficking ring here in the United States so that people like Mike Pence and Jim Banks and Kasich, I don't even know how he says his name, Obama, who's raped and murdered hundreds of kids. You understand? These people are murderers. They're raping, murdering, complete sick reptilian perverts. George Bush, Daddy Bush, that guy has raped and murdered so many children. Remember what he used to say? Oh, welcome to Daddy Bush's neighborhood. Pretending like he was, the guy on the early morning show, right? The Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This is the crap he would do to these children. This is what's going on. And everybody who has kept their mouth shut and not said anything, you're complicit in this. You're complicit because you don't speak out. You don't call your governor. You don't call these people and say, you know what? I know you guys are raping and murdering children. And I'm going to continue to say and talk about it, and I'm going to continue to make it a well-known fact. I'm going to go around telling everybody, and I'm going to tell them so they can tell other people. We can't just sit here and say, well, we got to do what they say. No, you don't. You do not comply with the wicked nation. Jehoshaphat was punished for that. He incurred the wrath of God because why? He complied and he aided and abetted a wicked nation. We can't do that. It's time to stand up and say no. I want to hear people screaming across the United States. I want people to come out with their guns in their hand and stand in the front yard and say, you come here, you threaten me and my property and my children, I will take your head off. You will not do this. And if you try to hurt the old lady down the street, I'm coming after you. You don't put your hands on old women. They're yanking these poor old people off the streets. Like they're nothing but, just a pesky bother. And throwing them in FEMA camps. Wrong. Horrible. And nobody says anything. What if it was your mom or your cousin or your aunt who was on the streets like that? Would you like them to go and take them and do that with them? Scott, we've become a nation where people don't care about anybody. They just don't. They see some homeless guy. You know what? I'll tell you. Scott was in the drive-thru the other day talking to me, and some homeless guy out there, he didn't have any shoes on. The pavement was hot, hot, hot. While I'm on the phone with him, he pulls up over there, takes off his shoes, and gave them to the guy. And then he had to go back and go get some more shoes. He had to go shopping and get him some shoes. Well, he saw him again yesterday, I think, and he didn't have the shoes anymore. But at least he got a pair that day. These people, some of them are so messed up in the head that they need serious Jesus. He is the only one that can fix it. They need deliverance. They need care. They need people to actually care what happens to them. And nobody's doing it. Everybody's just treating them like they're trash. And Scott, they just fill up with demons, one after another. They become a human chalice for demons. And if they don't know Jesus and the FEMA camps are loaded with them and they take them out, where do they go? It makes me sick, Scott, that people are so complicit and compliant. And, but the Bible doesn't say. Yes, it does. It says that if you don't stand up for the widows and the orphans, well, go read Nehemiah. Go read all the accounts. David. You know what? There's a time, I just read today, a time for peace and a time for war, a time for love and a time for hate. Well, right now, you need to hate this government. You need to hate these tyrants. And you need to go after them and stand up to them. They're killing little children. They're raping them 50, 60, 100, 150. Jaquanda of Houston, Texas, she was raped over 600 times before she was murdered. This is what they're doing to people in this nation. You're supposed to hate it. This is a good thing. Hating evil is good. And stepping up to stop it is good. It's sitting back and doing nothing that's going to get you in front of the judgment seat, and you're going to get punished because you did nothing to stop these children and these elderly people on the streets and all these homeless people. I was reading in Thessalonians today, Scott, where it was talking about to care for the feeble-minded. Right there, I just read it like an hour ago, 2 hours ago. We're supposed to care for the feeble-minded. You know, it's amazing how nobody cares about anybody. You know, poor Dave. You know, I got to tell you guys, if you're under this kind of control, if you have chips, I mean, Dave, we know Dave has at least four, six, or at least, I think he has 6 of them that we've counted so far, and even in his legs. Listen, folks, he's tormented night and day. This is what these people are doing. He's 65 years old. He's a veteran of the United States Army, and this is what he gets. This is his thanks. Does he have any friends? Not many. Does he have any family? No. He's got nobody. Nobody. When God gave him to me, I felt like I'm supposed to be there for him when he's having a hard day, when they're doing this stuff to him. I can't tell you how I sit and cry because of what they're doing to these people. It's making me sick, and nobody's doing anything. They look at people like Dave and they say, oh, you're crazy. Well, remember, all of you who have chips are being interfered with, and that could be even you and me, like, because they have us, they don't have to have all those chips anymore. You need to be very careful when you think or you feel or you say or you do. You need to take every thought captive, and I am serious. Every single thing that goes through your mind, you better stop and think about it, because you're going to see things that are not really there. You're going to hear things that's not what the person said. They're going to twist people's words. You're going to have to rely on a person's character. I want you to remember that I said that. You're going to have to rely on how that person's always treated you. If somebody told me, oh, Scott said something real bad about you, I would say, no, he didn't. One time I had this old past preacher guy. This is how I got to know a Christian. He was supposed to be a preacher. He was a dope-running, no good for nothing shyster, right? This guy told his nephew, you know, she's an alcoholic. I've seen beer bottles outside in the garbage by her house. She's an alcoholic. Truth of the matter is, I don't touch the stuff. And anyone that knows me knows I don't drink. I just don't like it. And I've never been a drinker my whole life. I just don't like it. And anybody that knows me would laugh in his face and go, she doesn't even drink. Huh. She can't stand the taste of it. She don't like the smell of that stuff. The only time she has that liquor in her house is when she's cooking holiday stuff, whatever. Gone. So what he said was a complete lie. But the person who knew me was laughing. Like, dude, you must really think I'm stupid. I know her. She doesn't even drink. Now, her brother, on the other hand, who's a cop, he might come over and have a six-pack, but not her. So, see, this is the thing. You're going to have to rely on those you know and who they are. You need to think in your mind. Has this person always treated me good? Or is this person, do I know she has my best interest at heart? And you get, yeah. Then you know what? You need to stop and go, maybe they made me hear something that I didn't hear. Because this is what they're going to do. They're going to use psychotronics to make you see things, hear things, and think things. And you're going to have to rely on that person and how you know that person to be your guide. Now, I'm not joking. You guys need to take this to heart. Because you think that you swear you heard something a certain way, but that's not what that person said. So be careful that you do not start cutting off. They want to divide and conquer. So if you have nobody in life and somebody comes along that, has taken you in and you're the everything to them and they're trying to divide and conquer, why is that? Because they don't want you to have anybody in your corner. So they're going to try to cut that off so they can get you all alone. It's the lionesses that cut out the gazelle. That's what demons do, and that's what these guys do. So, Scott, we all have to be careful that we rely on the person's character. And by the way, I talked to Scott today, and I got to tell you guys, and he vouches it's true, I have never met a more easily to offend group of individuals until I met Christians. I kid you not. I mean, I know people in the world, we'd sit around and, whoa, and they'd go, nobody ever took anything personal. But, man, you get around a Christian, you say the wrong thing, that they take it the wrong way, and there's hell to pay. I have never in my life been around people who are so easily offended. And I think that religious spirit comes with the spirit of offense. I mean, Scott, you have to admit that's what I said is the truth.
Well, unfortunately, it is true, and it's a sad circumstance. I forgot to mention that part of the FedBiz bidding that's out there looking for, items to furnish for FEMA also includes a large number of wood chippers. Now, what in the world would FEMA want with all the wood chippers? Well, you may think, well, there must, need to get firewood and everything else. That's not how they operate. They're not going to do that. So what else could you use wood chippers for? Well, if you have a large amount of people that you have to eliminate, just as the FEMA camp that, by the way, you can look at in Arizona has very, very large pits. Now, if you've ever been to a very large slaughterhouse, there was one in Arizona not too far from where I grew up, and they would have these pits where basically they would just let all the runoff from, the killing of the animals go into these pits. And that's exactly the way these FEMA camps look. So, if you're going to buy, 15, 20,000 wood chippers, what in the world are you going to be doing with them? So I forgot to mention that. I wanted to bring it up. When you're talking also, Julie, about the individuals that have done, the raping and the killing and everything else, very little is ever talked about Uncle Joe Biden. We see video after video of him, the way he acts around children, the way he puts hands on them, the way he's always whispering in the ears. If there's a woman that for some reason he seems to be attracted to, he's all handsy with her. And so they really refer to him as creepy Uncle Joe Biden. Well, one of the respectful things, like when I minister to somebody, I make it a very strong point that if I'm going to lay hands on them, I ask them. I announce it. Is it okay if I lay hands on you? So that way there's an acknowledgement that I'm not encroaching on their space, because many of the people who come in have been violated. They've been assaulted. They've been abused. And so anyone that just does that to anybody, I have a problem with it. It's one of the things that I used to see at a church I attended years ago, that somebody who should have never been in the front to greet people was giving everybody hugs. Now, I'm big on not touching those I don't know anyways under whatever circumstances, because you can transfer demons. And this individual who had never been through deliverance, who I don't even believe actually was a Christian, or one to profess themselves as a believer in Jesus Christ, was hugging everybody. And there were people who, women especially, who were coming to church, coming to have fellowship, to get back into relationship because they had been abused, they had been molested, they had been assaulted and raped and everything else. That's the last thing you do. So you need to approach every circumstance per the individual, and this is where you're guided by the Holy Spirit, whether to or not. And if you do, you ask. If they say no, then don't be offended. That we'll leave it at that. Because in time, once you minister, once you get things right, you kick the demons out, you get their hearts healed, that's just going to fall into place. And that needs to be in appropriate order. So any time that you have someone that violates another individual, that is someone who's at the opposite end of who God is. And so this hodgepodge of individuals that are within running our government, doing the transference of children, sex trafficking, this is a disgusting, horrible situation that shows the depths of Satan, shows you the depravity, shows you how bad they really are. And unfortunately, I can see that in the church. But getting back to easily offending Christians, what I see is the acceptance of particular doctrines that are those things of men, traditions of men, or doctrines of demons, false doctrines, and they hold on to those things. And as soon as you bring anything that challenges them, they get really upset. Well, how about you get upset when Jesus is insulted? How about you get upset the very fact that they want to kick Jesus out? How about that's when we get offended? And that's not the case. They'll stand down, they'll be quiet, and they'll be good little boys, good little girls. And just it breaks my heart to see that, because literally that has put us where we're at. Now, again, for those who are not believers, those who are in the occult, those who like to, are listening to our show, there is an order of things. And just because you're not in Christ doesn't mean that you don't know those order of things. There's some wonderful people, absolutely loving people who do not are not believers. They have integrity. They're intelligent. They have a good heart. They'll give the shirt off your back. And unfortunately, when it comes to those believers, that's not what I see. Now, it was interesting, Julie was talking about the shoes I gave that guy, and then I see him a day or two later, and he doesn't have the shoes. You know what? He probably sold them so he could eat. I have no idea. But that's unfortunate. If you remember, Ronald Reagan opened up the asylums, the county and the state and the federal institutions for the mentally ill, and he released them on the streets. Now, so whether that truly was to cut budgets or anything else, any time that any federal agency does anything, it's for their benefit. It has nothing to do anything for the people. So crime went up, loss of life went up, because those people who were not capable of taking care of themselves then perished. Because you need to know the elements, especially Arizona. Who would think people would freeze to death in Arizona? But it does happen. I can remember one year we had temperatures in Phoenix that actually went down into the 20s. Now, that's not very often, but of course you need to remember hypothermia can start in the 60s too. And so we had all these homeless people that were caught, that were sleeping in the cardboard homes that they were making along the river bottom, the Salt River that runs down through Phoenix and everything else. And we had a massive amount of people actually freeze to death. And so by releasing these people, and this was pretty much the same year or the year after is when that took place, that again, we as ones who are, supposedly in control of ourselves, ones who can make rational decisions, humanitarily do have a responsibility. And I'll have people argue about that. It's none of their business, everything else, but that's not the Word of God. That's not what God would want. If you're capable of helping somebody, then you do it. It's compassion. It's showing love. And in that then is a representation of who God is. You know, he still wishes none should perish. And those who truly are mentally ill, chances are, well, the thing is they've got demons, but they've been abused in some way, or there's a curse upon them, because that's not the way God makes people. When you're in a bad situation, you're cursed, you're demonized, you're demon possessed. You've done something, or your family has done something that has placed it on you, or you've got a group of people that have placed the curse on you. And so we, who have been given that ability to reverse it, to stop it, to cancel, to void it, to render it to no effect, have a responsibility to do. And the church, the mainstream church, has not done that. So we have a massive amount of people who were perishing who did not. We have a tremendous amount of people who are committed by the state or county or whatever the situation is, that are in terrible shape, that are just absolutely tormented by demons. And then, of course, you know, I'm dealing with people who are on the outside. Now, someone had requested about giving testimonies, and here's the testimony. And this was years ago. There was somebody who was actually committed, and the family had found out about the ministry that I was involved in. That I was still training, I was still learning at the time. This was a long time ago. And when they found out about the ministry, they had petitioned the doctor to let them out, to be under the direction of the family, to come to be ministered to. And so they brought this individual who, by the way, they were ready to just basically let him go. They were going to let him just, they were done with him. But they gave one last-ditch effort, and they brought him to the ministry. Well, there was such a tremendous improvement after casting out the first group of demons that the doctor, seeing the improvement, allowed him to come back again the next week. And this went on for once a week for 30 days. At the end of the 30 days, they completely gave him a complete bill of health. He continued to, he was released, he continued to come to Deliverance. Within 60 days, he was off to minister to others. From being completely committed, being under doctor's authority, under all the medications, and then being basically left to die, then now completely turned around and out witnessing and helping others. Because they got the demons out. They got the curses broke off of him. They restored him. They got his heart healed. They got his soul mended. They were able to put him back together again. And so then he became the man of God that God intended him to be, not the poor, wounded, fragmented individual that wanted to in his life that Satan tried to turn him into. And if there had not been a deliverance ministry in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time, that man would be dead. And he would have been dead at least 15 years ago. Instead, he's out helping others as it should be. So there's a good testimony. All right. There you go, Julie. What else you got? Where do you want to go?
Well, I just want to say that was great. I really liked hearing that, because not only was somebody got free, but he's back out paying it forward, which is great, because you don't see that very often. So I also wanted to hit on something. I got sent from my 007 buddy, I got sent an article. And now, women, this is for you. This is for all the chicks out there, especially you women who were in the, I'm not sure, I wasn't born yet, so I don't know when all that hippie thing happened, but I do know that there was some kind of a thing where you burned your bras. Remember that? I wasn't born yet, but I just know I heard about it. Well, I'll just tell you, women, it's time for us to burn the bras. I've never really worn bras. I'll just tell you that right now. I don't have to. I don't need one. And riding horses, I can't have those. They're just too I can't rope right, I can't catch cows right, so I said, I'm never doing that again. I was a teenager and threw them out. Well, I know a lot of you say, well, but unlike you, Julie, I actually have what I need to put in one of those. Well, you might disagree with that bra thing, but let me read you this. Breast cancer is one of the major killers of women in the United States. My grandmother on both sides of my family, and I watched my grandmother die of breast cancer, both my grandmother. It is also one of the most overdiagnosed and overtreated conditions. Sadly, most women have no idea that simply not wearing a bra can have a major impact on the likelihood of developing breast cancer. You probably didn't hear about a recent study from Brazil published in May 2016 in the journal Advances in Oncology Research and Treatment, entitled Wearing a Tight Bra for Many Hours a Day is Associated with Increased Risk of Breast Cancer. The study echoes another recent study done in 2015 in Kenya, which also confirmed the breast cancer leak, the bra cancer leak. This study demonstrated the existence of a relationship between the use of a tight bra when associated with an increased number of hours wearing it and the risk of breast cancer among pre- and postmenopausal women. Studies from Venezuela, Scotland, numerous studies out of China also agree. Wearing these bras for long hours each day is a leading cause of breast cancer. Did you hear what I just said? Leading cause. Okay? But you probably haven't heard about any of this. That's because the multi-billion-dollar cancer industry doesn't want you to know about it. And they control mainstream media's coverage of cancer. And with Pink October just around the corner, they want you to open your purses and not your minds. Now, every October, we as a rodeo community, when we rope and do our rodeo events in October, we all wear pink, and all of us who are ropers, we all use pink ropes. And that's the men and the women. We all wear pink cowboy shirts, and we rope with pink ropes, and a portion of all our winnings is then given to the, Breast Cancer Foundation. So this is something that's done every year in the rodeo community. So I'm very well aware of and very familiar with this organization. Cancer is a big business, and pink charities rake in the dough donated by hardworking women who walk and run for a cure while wearing cancer-causing bras. Fortunately, more women are questioning the need for a bra. I say, yeah. And that leads to questioning the need to accept the discomforts and diseases bras cause. Headaches, backaches, nerve damage to the hands, deep shoulder grooves, droopy breasts, breast pain, cysts, lumps, and breast cancer are all some of the problems bras cause. Like the corset, which if you guys know anything about the corset, they actually killed women. Corsets were responsible for the death of women, okay? Bras are harmful garments that constrict and shape the body through pressure, which impairs circulation, especially the circulation of the immune system's lymphatic pathways. And this results in fluid accumulation in the breast, causing cysts, pain, and tissue toxification. As the new study from Brazil explains, breast cancer most likely has to do with the compression and impairment of lymphatic system by tightly worn bras. Bras and other external tight clothing can impede and flow, cutting off lymphatic drainage so that the toxic chemicals are trapped in the breast. Breast cancer is one of the most major killers of women in the United States. It's also one of the most overdiagnosed and overtreated. Sadly, most women have no idea that simply wearing a bra can have a major impact on the likelihood of developing breast cancer. I really think that I know this is kind of a joke, you shouldn't, I'm not trying to make it a joke, but the bottom line is, folks, my grandmothers both died of breast cancer, and then my aunt, who was the only daughter of my paternal grandmother, she died of breast cancer as well. And so you can see that my mom died when I was 3, so I don't know what she would have had or didn't have, but I can tell you that you can see that it's something that obviously runs in my family. But I can just tell you that I know that this is true. this story is true, and I know the studies are real. And I say that all of us collectively just take them and burn them. I don't have any to burn, but I'll help you burn yours. Here's the thing. I wear tank tops, and I want to suggest that for you women who say, I can't get rid of my bra. I wear tank tops, and Old Navy happens to be a wonderful place where you get very inexpensive tank tops. And you can get them where they're form-fitting but not tight. And when I'm roping or riding, I always have a tank top on under my cowboy shirt or whatever I'm wearing. And it's not tight, but it's not loose. And so if I wear a small, size small, and you guys can go all the way up. They have all the other sizes. But if you put a tank top on, and sometimes I wear two different colors, and that adds extra, support, and it's not tight. So I'm just going to throw that out there as to help to women. But I'm telling you, women in this country do not understand the logistics of bra wearing and how it has literally, Scott, this is a major, major health issue for women. And it sounds so stupid, but it's actually, if your body is constricted, and especially the lymphatics, and your breasts contain a lot of that, and if that system is constricted, you're going to have toxicity and toxic chemicals that are going to remain in your breasts, in the breast tissue, and they're going to sit there, and then you have what's called tissue toxification. Okay, and then you have this tissue toxification that the cells that create cancer are present, and then then what do? They go, whammo, we got food. So here we go. So I'm not to be funny, I know it's not a funny issue, but really, ladies, if you want to get this risk off the table, I would suggest that you look at just look into tank tops or something, sorry. And don't wear the tight tank tops because that's going to be bad again. Try to find something, that's form-fitting but not tight. So, Scott, this has been an issue for me since I was a teenager. I threw them away. I didn't even barely have any, and I threw them out. And I was just like, I can't stand them, and I'm from the desert, and it gets very hot where I'm from, and you're stifled. I mean, literally 130 degrees. Daytime temperatures are an average of 122 to 128 in the shade. So, you wear the least amount of clothes you can, and bras are very, very, very uncomfortable, especially in the heat. So I say we have a bra burning party. Anyway, there you go, Scott. That was one of my news articles I wanted to make sure I got on the air tonight.
Yeah. Well, that has affected my family. But I did read the articles some time back about the lymphatic system actually being hampered because of bras. For that very reason that, the natural, flow of things is hampered and circulation is altered. And so it makes sense. Mammograms, same thing with the compression that they do and the radiation that's actually injected into those organs because they're very, very sensitive organs, and now you're concentrating a large amount of radiation that now the experts are even, saying do not do them. So, same thing, I had my tonsils taken out only because my brother's was being taken out. That was the big thing in the 60s when I was a little kid. And I've been sick ever since. I get colds easy. Anything that comes along, I get it. That's why I'm very particular about things because I have to watch it. And I know that affected me. Well, they just, you get a certain age, you took your tonsils out. That's just the way it was when I was a kid. Well, it's absurd. Absolutely absurd. And now they find out, the immune system is affected by it. Same thing with vasectomies. That's now being shown that it is a causer of testicular cancer because, again, it's, blocking the order of things. There's things that are meant to be done, and that's now not a function that's allowed. So all the stuff that these guys make all the money on, like Big Pharma, my father died from the anticoagulant medications, warfarin, Coumadin, caused him to bleed out. In my opinion, that he should have never had it. So what these doctors prescribe and what they do, well, I forget what the number is. I should have looked it up. But, you know, they'll say that so many people die in hospitals a year. Well, in reality, that number is doubled and tripled when you really look at them, whether it's been mistakes or whether it's medications or whatever the situation is. I do as little as possible with doctors. Now, obviously, in an emergency room, if you've been in an accident, you know, that's a different story. But when it comes to your general health, I want nothing to do with them. Because the last thing I need is mercury and aluminums and squalene, which is a diesel ingredient in the vaccines and all this other stuff. Absolutely absurd. And we know where it's coming from. And again, these things cause cancer. And just like you said, Julie, you know, these the ones that have the treatments, they're making billions of dollars off of it. And we find out that cancer in itself actually is produced by man. Now, I know that I talked about benzene, which is derived out of crude oil. And benzene in itself is one of the main cancer causers, a carcinogen. But in its right, you know, use and or not even using it at all, then it's not a problem. But it's been introduced into, you know, this world in great quantities because of diesel or gasoline-consuming cars, used for tanning, used for dyeing, other types of things, and it's been spread out. So it was one of the reasons too. But again, with the foods, you know, all the contaminants, lead poisoning, mercury poisoning, aluminum itself. You know, if you're using deodorants or antiperspirants that have aluminum in it, you should stop using them because the main ingredient's aluminum, and that aluminum we know is part of dementia and Alzheimer's, and so this is one of the reasons that's at you know, limit that it's at, and the same thing with, you know, ADHD, you know, autism. Asperger's, all this stuff is something that man has introduced, and it's by intent. They know that it does this. You know, we talked about the World Health and cell phones. Cell phones should have never been allowed to be out there. There's ways to go about it. You know, there's other tech systems of different frequencies with the power consumption and everything else that could be managed better, that could be less of a threat. But that was never their concern. They did everything they can to make sure we are bombarded 24 hours a day. And, you know, we were never, ever intended to have that inflicted onto our bodies. You know, as far as being out in public, you know, as you were discussing, Julie, I would venture to say that there will be men who will look and say, I wish it wasn't so. But at the same time, that's the way it was. You know, I think the bra was 100 years old back in the 80s, so it's 120, 130 years old. And then, as you mentioned, coming from the corset, coming from those things that were absolutely absurd, that anyone that, you know, had respiratory problems, I can imagine being overcome by heat, and then in itself just restricting. All in the name of beauty. Well, you know, that's not the way God made us. I have to admit that. So obviously there's something else that needs to be done. And look at all the money that's being made off all this stuff. I mean, the other thing too, Julie, is the materials that are coming out of China for bras and for shoes and for underwear and all this other stuff. They're dyeing, the chemicals they use to dye them, the colors and everything else. They themselves have carcinogens. They themselves can even be material that's been regenerated that is coming from a environment that should never be in contact with skin. So, you know, they're getting blisters and sores and rashes and all this other stuff. And then what do? You go to the doctor. Well, you know, it seems like one thing turns into another. So, you know, I'm not going to disagree with you on that, Julie. I get it. I mean, I read that article, and when I read exactly what takes place because of wearing a bra, the restriction of the circulation. And I read it because there is cancer in my family. And so far, the last one has pulled through. I won't mention, but my uncle lost his wife to this, and so, it's a sad situation. But guaranteed that chemicals, toxins of heavy metals, and just all the food additives that have been put in are very large contributors to that. And our lymphatic system is part of the cleansing of the body, eliminating toxins and poisons. And I know this because I was poisoned from the environment that I was in and had to go through a great deal of detoxing. And I mentioned, too, it's funny, because when I was first detoxing and I would tell people that, the first thing they would say was, how long have you had this drug problem? And I'd say, no, you don't understand. I have heavy metals in me. I have aluminums. I have N-butyl alcohol, N-butanol as it's referred to. Look that up and see how bad that is. That's still in my liver. It still shows up. And so I'm constantly having to get rid of this stuff. This is the environment that we're in, and this is what they've exposed us to now. And you add the radio waves, you add the microwave, you add those Wi-Fis, the smart meters and everything else, on top of cells who are already being irritated. I had an uncle, a great uncle actually, that was kicked by a cow and bruised the bone marrow, and it never healed right, and cancer set in. So it's an irritant that can cause a mutation, and that's brought on by harmful chemicals and toxins, and then the body not being able to purge itself out. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but in the grand scheme of things, that is the case. And so it's an act of God that we don't have more cancers, actually. I can remember one doctor I had to rebuke. I had a prostate problem. I was driving hundreds of miles a day, and you can't always take a potty break when you need to, and because of that, I got a prostate infection. And when I was talking to him about it, he said, well, if you live long enough, you will have prostate cancer. Well, you know what, Doc? I don't receive that. You're not going to speak that over me. So I had to rebuke that. I had to cancel that out. If anyone speaks over you like that, you cancel it. You say, I do not receive that. Because if you take that in, and you've got open doors, and you've got demonic issues, and you've already got curses upon your family, you're receiving that spoken word, which is extremely powerful. When I deal with a lot of different situations, and I get people who speak over me like that. I get people who get angry with me. I get people who want to curse me, especially those in witches' covens and those who are Jezebels, I'm a Jezebel expert. I don't think anyone's dealt with Jezebels as much as I have. And believe me, the words that they can speak out are a two-edged sword. They can rattle your very soul. And so I've just learned to toughen myself up and not receive it, and state it that I do not receive that in the name of Jesus Christ. Same thing with cancers. Same thing with sicknesses. I think that, there was a woman who was very inspirational to me when I first started out in Deliverance. And I kind of at first thought she was a little over the edge and rebuking everything and not receiving it. But you know what? After all these years, she was absolutely correct. And here she is in her later years fighting just as strong as ever. And she's been a survivor because she's understood how the enemy works and does not receive it and will not be in agreement with it. Do not come into agreement with evil. So, go ahead, Julie.
And Scott, I can be just like, I know who you're talking about, and I can be just like her in my personality of just stepping up and saying, knock it off. But, some people go, well, you're just too hard. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. When it comes to all of this Babylonian worship and stuff, if I hurt your feelings, then maybe you better go take a look in the mirror and see what's wrong with you. Because if you get offended because I'm on your case about getting out of those places and get away from evil and don't associate with that stuff, then you got a problem. It's not me, it's you. Because those places are full of nothing but demons and people who will stab you in the back because they don't even know who Jesus is. So I tell people, man, you need to get my parents used to always tell me, bad association spoils useful habits. And Paul said that. And, it's true. Everything you do, every person you talk to, it's important, the exchange that you have for them. I read part of the Bible today I was reading where it's like, to care for the feeble-minded and watch what you say and, it was just all these life lessons, in Thessalonians that Paul wrote, and it's you wonder why people don't even read that stuff, But one of the things I was going to say about the deodorant that you mentioned, folks, I have a lot of information. I get people asking me, what do you mean you don't brush your teeth with toothpaste? Well, what do you mean you don't? So I usually have people saying, what is it that you do? How do you, I sent Scott some the other day, and Scott, you can testify that you've been using it and your teeth never felt better. And I'm going to give you some of my secrets of things that I do. I have frankincense oil, I have peppermint oil, and I have on order like 5 other oils that I'm getting in. And I make my own stuff, okay? And this is for the worst stinky person you can imagine, okay? There's a his and hers. But you can make your own deodorant, and it's extremely easy to do. You just need like 3/4 cup of arrowroot powder or cornstarch, a 1/4 cup of food-grade diatomaceous earth, and 7 to 9 tablespoons of melted coconut oil. Done. Mix it up. Now, I add essential oils to that because I like the smell, but you don't have to. And I just, you put it in a little jar, and it's like a, thick paste. You just take a little bit on your finger, rub it on your arm, and not only will you smell great, I don't care how much you sweat and smell, you're not going to have an odor. It is great. And like I said, put some lavender oil in it, put some peppermint, whatever you like, frankincense, which is very good for your skin, by the way. And by the way, frankincense is a miracle oil for damaged skin. Aging skin, damaged skin, it's wonderful. And I have a wonderful recipe for a scrub on your face. Costs pennies to make a scrub. If you can get fine ground coffee and the coffee bean extract, I can show you how to make the best, most wonderful, and coconut oil. Mix it together and make the nicest facial mask and scrub. And I'm telling you, this stuff works, okay? And these are things that I use. I use diatomaceous earth, food grade. You can get a giant bag for $10, okay? I use it in my garden on my vegetable plants because of little bugs. And guess what? Anything that's exoskeletal will die or run, okay? You put it around your vegetables. You also put it around the house for ants. Ants do not like it. They stay away from it because what you see is a talc powder. Oh, this is nice and silky. Not to them, it's not, okay? And I also put it in juice, and I drink it, and it helps knees, ligaments, your whole body. It's silica, right? It's a form of silica. It's phytoplankton. Now, what it does is it's like tiny little cages. And when you put a scoop in some juice or tea or whatever, it doesn't have a flavor really, you drink it, your body can automatically turn that into calcium if it needs it. And it's the calcium that you actually need, not one you buy at the store that you're thinking you're taking it, and it's actually not doing any good. Case in point, with my chickens, I always take the eggs, and after I crack the eggs, I take the shells and I dry them in the oven so they're really crunchy and dry. Then I grind them into a powder. Well, that powder is calcium. It's not anything that I can break down in my body. I could take it and it wouldn't do me any good. But my chickens benefit greatly, so I put it in the chicken feed. And I'd let them, and they'd eat it that way. Actually helps them, that calcium does, so to lay better eggs. So anyway, this is the kind of stuff that I've been doing my whole life. I come from a farm. Like my mom, there's no such thing as a doctor. We didn't go to those things. We didn't go to those guys. everything was solved naturally, echinacea, home remedies. My sister in California is real big on that. And the things that I can give you recipes for actually work. I want you to remember the season of ticks and fleas and mosquitoes, making your own insect repellent. I can give you recipes for that. I use peppermint oil, put it in I use that. You can take a few drops and just rub it into your whole body, lemongrass. But you do a mixture of 2 or 3. Geranium oil, essential oil. There's the geranium, also rose oil. You put a few drops between the dog's shoulder blades and at the base of the tail and take a little drop and rub it on each leg, 1 drop, and let the dog run out and play and go out in the woods and come back, and neither one of you will have ticks, okay? They hate it. The ticks won't touch it. They won't get near the animal. And it doesn't even have to be all over the animal. The smell is so pungent, the ticks, that's how they know who they're going after. They can smell you a long way before you get to where they're at. They can smell you already coming. And they put their little legs up, these 2 legs in front, and they get ready to latch on, okay? And they just get ready. And they can smell you, but see, they smell that, and the legs go down, and they will not attach to you, okay? So that's just some of the stuff you can do for insect control on your animals, on yourself. Now, with cats, I have 2 cats. I have to be really careful. Only certain oils can you ever put on a cat. The one oil that I know is totally safe because I use it is frankincense oil. And I take a little bit of that and just a few drops in distilled water, and I literally, spray it into my hand and rub it into my cat's coat. Not only is she soft, but fleas hate it. And the fleas don't touch her. They can't take it. And if she happens to have had a flea, when I got her, she did have fleas. She was a kind of feral cat. I did that. Those fleas were dead, dying all. They could not even take the frankincense oil. And it wasn't a ton of it, you know what I mean? It was just a light little bit through her coat. So I recommend that for cats. But there's only a couple of them you can use on cats, okay? Because otherwise you could hurt them. So I have this information. If anybody's interested, I will tell you that some of the best prices on oils are, you're going to be going with Amazon. And I get a lot of stuff on Amazon, and there's a couple of oil people, brands that I like and I stay with because they're very pungent. You get they're steam distilled, and they're not ruined when you get them. You use very little, okay? So I don't know, Scott, I think some of these things are important. The diatomaceous earth, not only can you take it in your body, and it will, I'm telling you, it is this 68-year-old man down at PetSmart one day, and he works for Authority Dog Food, and he was bouncing around everywhere. And he says, you know why I feel so great? I look old, but I'll tell you, I've been taking diatomaceous earth for the last 3 years, and let me tell you, we're talking, and he said every ache and pain I had, gone. Back problems, gone. Knee problems, gone. So I actually have gotten several people to start taking it, and they are not having the problems they were. So with, the joint pain and getting older and things like that. So it actually has helped them. But you can use it in your garden. You can use it in your house. You can, like I said, you can put it in juice. It makes a wonderful powder, odor absorber. And you can mix it with cornstarch or arrowroot powder, put it in your shoes. You know how you buy the powder for your shoes or whatever? You can use it, like I said, under your arms with, what I told you. It has so many uses. Also, if you put it on your cats or dogs, it also will eliminate fleas. Because fleas are exoskeletal creatures. They may look like soft talc powder to you, but to them, it literally cuts them, and they dehydrate. They die. So it is good for that as well. But Scott, there's a lot of things that I use that I've gotten you using now because I brush my teeth with diatomaceous earth. You're a coffee drinker. I'm a tea drinker. You drink a lot of coffee. I usually drink tea. I'm a sweet tea drinker, from the South. And I love it, and I drink it all the time. So I just take that, and you can, if you want to use mouthwash, well, whatever. Get your brush wet and, just put the diatomaceous earth on top of your brush and just, it's powder, and then just brush your teeth. And I promise you, your stained teeth, within 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to have white teeth, and your teeth are going to be so clean. And not only that, but that diatomaceous earth will actually help rebuild your teeth, by the way, and your gums, gingivitis, all that, gone, okay, gone. So it's got a lot of uses, and I know, Scott, you're enjoying it. I know you are.
Yeah, and in fact, the toothpaste that's out there, it's so full of chemicals and all the other stuff in it that it's scary. And so something like this, and then, I've been mixing it with the Toms. You told me about the Toms. But I wanted to mention Lynn a while back from McConnellsburg sent me a bunch of homemade soap. And my skin's very sensitive because of the toxin poisons that I was exposed to. I get rashes and everything else. And whatever this soap was, I haven't had one issue. It's the best soap. I don't know, if he made it at home or know someone who did it, but it's incredible stuff. I can remember my grandmother. What's that?
Scott, was this something a listener sent you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Lynn from McConnellsburg.
Yes, that, and he also sent to me as well, and he makes it. And by the way, he sent me a couple of for birthday and Savannah, something for Savannah, I don't remember, but a box for her. And yes, it is really good, and he will share his recipe, he said. And I was going to tell you guys that I do make soap, so yeah. Okay, go ahead, Scott. I just want to know if it was him.
Well, I was saying I can remember when I stayed on my grandmother's farm back in the 70s for a couple of years, and she had this storage thing. It was the smokehouse, and there was this massive copper kettle out there. I mean, it was huge. I don't know whatever happened to it, but she used to make soap, and they made them out of ash. It's ash soap. So however they did that, but today we've got all these chemicals. It's like food preservatives and sweeteners and all this stuff. This stuff is derived from crude oil. Okay, it's chemicals. Same thing with vaccinations and some medications. They're derived from crude oil. Otherwise, when you break the benzene ring down and you pull different elements out of it and then recombine it again, it's still coming from crude oil. And this is what we're taking, it's like petroleum jelly. And I see some of the talcum powders out there now are being sued because it's causing cancer. They finally have come out with that. It's got all this other stuff added into it. So anything natural, just like the stuff you're talking about, is a plus for me, because then I don't have to worry about it. Because anything, and Julie, if I consume something that has sodium benzoate, BHT, MSG, or anything of the combination within 23 minutes, and I've timed it, 23 minutes for the next 2 hours, I will have extreme flu symptoms, and I'll be off of my feet. And I have to just lay down and wait it out till my body burns it up and gets rid of it. And then when it's gone, I feel like I ran a mile as fast as I could, and it takes a while to recover. This is what I deal with. So anything that is natural is a plus to me. So again, I wanted to thank Lynn. I haven't mentioned it for a while about the soap. Boy, who would think? I have to laugh because when it was first sent to me, and I saw it was from Pennsylvania, I had it was a busy day that day, and I opened up the box, and I have to laugh because it looked just like the cheese my grandmother used to have the Amish make. She was a dairy farmer, and she would take her cream to these Amish, and they would make this cheese, and it looked just like that. So I actually threw it in the refrigerator for the first couple of hours until I realized what it was. So that's my story. All right, go ahead, Joe.
I'm definitely going to be making my own soap too. He said he was more than willing to give me his soap recipe. And I have a good friend that lives in another town kind of close to here, and she makes her own soap, and I have several bars that she made. And, you know, when you use that soap, you don't have that slicky bubble feeling. You know, it's just, you just see literally you see the soap and the dirt come off, and I get pretty dirty out in the back. I mean, I'm, you know, in the woods and out in the mud and whatever. But, you know, I tell you, making soap is, I mean, I've seen her do it. It's not that hard. And with all the different lemongrass, and I think that's one of my favorites. That's my daughter's favorite, too, lemongrass. But you can make these soaps for a really economical price. And like Scott said, I want to know if anyone knows this. If you did know this, kudos to you. But if you did not know this, I hope you'll drop me a line and tell me. I want to see how many people don't know this. Did you know that Johnson & Johnson's baby shampoo, the tearless aspect of the shampoo, I found this out when my babies were little, and I didn't want to use it anymore. It has formaldehyde in it. That's one of the things that makes it tearless, something to do with the formaldehyde. Don't ask me how that works. But here I have a newborn infant, and I'm putting Johnson & Johnson's baby shampoo, tearless shampoo, and it's got formaldehyde in it. I mean, from the time they're born, they're bombarded. So I said, well, you know, I can't be using this. I got to find something else. So when you can make your own soaps, you can make soap that doesn't, I'll put it this way. I for years here I've had my dog business. I didn't use dog shampoo that had soap in it. It didn't have detergent. It was oatmeal, colloidal oatmeal, very gentle, because my customers were worth it, and I paid a lot of extra money for this stuff. But I made sure that my dogs and the dogs of my clients were not having detergent and soap all over their skin. There are many other ways to clean without using these harsh cleaners that contain all of these terrible things. Now, I will tell you a very true story, and I know you're probably not going to believe me, but it is a true story. Go look it up. There was a man who was in the Naval Shipyard, and he took this, I don't know what you call them, zerks, where you put the grease into the zerks or something under the vehicles, and they grease.
Yeah, it's a zert fitting, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And with the grease, it has to be, it's not oil, but it has to be like a real thick grease. Well, he said, I bet I can take this stuff. Now, it was white, mind you. The color was white. I bet I can take this stuff and make a killing and have women cooking with this stuff. And he's the one that was the inventor of it. And the guys were laughing at him. You're not gonna. He goes, I bet I can. Well, he did just that. Within, I think it was a couple years, he had it marketed. He had the labels and the canisters, and he did not change one bit of the recipe. Okay? And he marketed it, and he put it on the market, and women were buying it like insane. My grandmother hit the ceiling. My mom, my stepmom, hit no way. That stuff doesn't grace our home, our shopping cart, or our food. But women the world over purchase a grease that has been used for years in the Navy called Crisco. And if you're using it, my friends, that's exactly what that was used for in the Navy. And that recipe is the same today as it was used in those shipyards. And you're putting it in your food. Now, me, I grew up, I'm Hispanic, y'all know, and we use Manteca, which is a lard. My grandma used lard. We've always used it. By the way, my cholesterol is that of an 18-year-old boy, and my metabolism is right up there. I eat butter. I make my own butter. I get my cream and make butter. I do it the old-fashioned way. My kids run around with quart jars just like I did when I was a kid because we had a cow. We milked our own cow. People, listen, my cholesterol is perfect. My dad 71 years old. Cholesterol, perfect. He eats 2 eggs, 2 slices of bacon. And by the way, my dad's one on killing his own animals and putting them in the freezer just like I do. So he eats 2 eggs, 2 slices of bacon, and 2 slices of toast or tortillas or toast every morning for breakfast. He has the same thing. He's been having that breakfast for years and years and years. Or chorizo. If he doesn't have that, he'll use chorizo, which is full of lard. So his cholesterol is perfect. He has no health problems whatsoever. Running around, still chasing horses with me, okay? 71 years old. So, you know, you guys are in the cities and stuff. I know you guys can't hide and you don't know how to do that. But I'm telling you, when you put deodorant under your arms, that stuff, you're getting, read the back of the ingredients and tell me if you know what all that is. Because I've looked that stuff up. It's deadly. You can make arrowroot powder, cornstarch, a few tablespoons of coconut oil, and some diatomaceous earth. And by the way, I'm not sure how many pounds the bag is, but the bag measures about almost 2 feet tall, and it was $10. And by the way, the guy I get it from is a believer in Jesus Christ. Absolutely. He is a believer in Jesus. And so I continue to get from him because I do like to support his. He's just a little one-man show, you know, small company. But I do support him. And you know what? Diatomaceous earth is good for everything. You can even put an eighth of a cup in a batch of brownies. You can't even taste it, but you're eating it. It's good for your body. So, you know, I would just urge you to get you some coconut oil, keep it on hand, jojoba oil, sweet almond oil. One of the 3 needs to be a carrier for any of your essential oils. Use your essential oils. Use your diatomaceous earth. I'll give you recipes for facial scrubs, cleansers, you know, you name it. My daughter loves this stuff. She's always, you know, she went through a stage, Scott, where she was buying every product off the shelves at the store for pimples and blackheads and things. You know, she gets that teenager thing. And she said, no, this stuff actually works. And I told her, from the beginning, I said, none of it works. Telling you, I never had pimples or anything, but everybody I know that uses it, it doesn't work. So I finally said to her, do you want to use the way I do it now? Yes, please. So she starts taking zeolite and diatomaceous earth internally, and within 3 days, her face is almost completely cleared up. So, you know, we just got to go back to the way God intended us to live. We weren't supposed to wear bras that kept us smashed up all day long. Now we know, and what you said about the chemicals in the undergarments and the clothes, I have to tell you, when you said that, you are not only speaking gospel truth, but, brother, let me tell you, the Chinese are posted off our coast right now. They bought up through Nicaragua, they bought that whole canal going up in there for $60 million. They purchased it. And they are sitting there outside the United States and off the west coast, off of the south. They're all sitting surrounding our country right now. They have hated us since day one, and they are going to invade. Get ready. But let me tell you, folks, they purposely put poison to dye a gemstone. It takes a minimum of 9 months sitting in chemicals. 9 months. There is a vegetable dyes. It takes way longer, okay? And so nobody uses it except people like me who will refuse to do anything with chemicals would go that route, okay, if I was dyeing my stuff. Well, they purposely put one of the pinks, reds, oranges, those colors. Do you want to know what the catalyst is to get those colors? Listen to me, friends. Glass, crystal, gemstones, anything that they turn that color. Here's what you're drinking out or wearing. Lead. Lead is the number one carrier, or the way they get that red to go into and dye anything. In California, all of that is illegal. They can't even get it past the state line. So when I was in California, my gemstone business, I couldn't even order any kind of stuff like that from China or anywhere like that because it contains lead. They use mercury and arsenic. Arsenic is huge. I don't even think people understand. Rawhide bones for dogs, most of these, all the companies outside the U.S. use arsenic to tan the hides. See, we tan hides too. Hog hides, deer hides, we do that. My husband and I know how to do all that stuff. We don't use arsenic, we use borax. We use salt, good old-fashioned salt. And that's all we use, in borax. But these guys, this is what they use, and you're giving your dog a rawhide bone, and they're eating arsenic, and they're putting it in your clothes. Did you know to put a red dye in your clothes, in your underwear? They use lead in the dye. That's what makes it come out that pretty color of lead. That's the lead's what does it. So when Scott said that, he was more than speaking gospel. These people are putting it in your very clothes. If I were you, I wouldn't wear any underwear that has dye, and I wouldn't wear anything but cotton. You know the old saying, don't wear anything but your gynecologist always told you, ladies, stick with the cotton underwear? He was right. He was right. And wash them really good before you ever put them on your body because of the formaldehyde, by the way, that's in the clothes. You know how it makes them stiff, where they have that brand new feeling, shirts and all that? That's formaldehyde. Your furniture, that's formaldehyde. Anything you buy new like that kind of has that stiff or, kind of brand new feeling, that's formaldehyde. So don't wear it till you wash it. But Scott, there are many things that we can make for very cheap. The oils, you might spend $130, $140 just to get several oils up front, but you're going to use 15 drops in a whole thing of bugs for, a whole. And when you put it on, the bug repellent, you just put a few drops on your finger, and you just you use a carrier oil like coconut oil or jojoba or sweet almond oil. You just put a little bit, because a little bit's all it takes, and the bugs run. And Dave sent me a great article on insect repellent, and I'd be more than happy to pass that one on as well. So, Scott, I think it's important that we share these ideas with each other. We help each other out, because you will not have a store where you can go buy deodorant or whatever. You're not going to have this stuff. When things go sideways, you're not going to have these products at your disposal. So, and ladies, for any of you, I'm just saying, that are still dealing with, that time of the month, you might want to email me privately, and I will give you a solution to not having to use certain products, because you're not always going to be able to get them. So I would be willing to do that as well. But, Scott, these are things that we can do to help each other. We can make soap, and we can give it to our friends. We can learn how to do these things, because a lot of these things we can get quite easily right now, and one little bit of supply can make just bars and bars and bars and bars of soap. So I just thought it was important to kind of give some recipes out tonight, and I will also give you, anybody that writes me, I'll forward you all my, the places where I get these things, and there you go.
I wanted to mention coffee filters. I use the natural color brown, because the white ones, they actually use bleach. So when you have that hot water go through there, you reactivate the chlorine, and I actually get sick off of those things. Clota silver has been an absolute miracle for me. I originally found out from Clota silver that when my mother was a nurse, a long time ago, they actually used it as drops in the eye, that in case a woman had a venereal disease and the baby passed through the canal, this was one of the remedies for that. So Clota silver is over-the-counter, or you can make it yourself. My website is scotthensler.org. I've got all that on there. But that's something that if you do not have a generator yet, I would get that, because if you get a cut, if you get a cold, if you get a pink eye infection or anything like that, it'll knock it right out. And locally here, there was a guy that had shingles, and he had them all over his head. And I gave him a bottle. I haven't seen him recently, but I know it knocked it out because I've seen it do it before. You know, Walmart is very big on baby formula and water, but they put the fluoride in there. So, you know, Julie, you were talking about formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen, another major carcinogen, part of the benzene ring, that these things that they put onto us, many of the materials were removed that had formaldehyde. It was also part of tanning and some of the leathers. But, you know, you were talking about Crisco. Spam, I think, is another one of these. You know, MSG, for the preservative and food flavoring was invented by the Japanese during World War II because the rations were so bad that the troops wouldn't eat it. And what it does is it actually fools the brain into thinking that it tastes good. But in that can be very critical to your respiratory system, can causes issues with me. I feel like I'm having a heart attack if I get around MSG. Many of the table salts are nothing more than silica, and when you consume it and it gets into your bloodstream, it actually cuts your veins, and so that's one of the ways that plaque is able to develop. So sea salts and other salts of that is what I try and stick with. And then Julie, we were talking about tortillas. I can remember reading the formula that aluminum was actually in tortillas, and you were talking about that. The other thing about lead's even in, and this is bizarre, when if you bought Christmas lights or other decorative lights, there'll be a little clause there that'll say, warning, wash your hands after using it because it has lead on it. Well, electrical wires that have lead on it, that doesn't make any sense. Well, again, it's because of the dyeing that they did of the wire, of the actual insulation, that it has lead in it. Not enough content, apparently, for continuity of power, but certainly to be transferred to your hands that you can then ingest it. So lead, if we remember, was in paint, as a catalyst, as one to help bond, and of course the kids in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, retardation or low IQ was then linked to the very fact of lead in paint. So, here's the Chinese flooding us here in America with lead, and the Food and Drug, those who were supposed to be the consumer protection agencies and all that, turning their back, just like the World Health with cell phones. They know what's going on, and they're allowing it. This is criminal. They need to be brought to justice. They need to be arrested, charged, and brought to trial and incarcerated for their willful act of crimes against humanity. That's just what it is. We were talking about tobacco, some friends of mine the other day, and they knew all about that. They knew about the micronite filter, which was asbestos. I think it was Parliament, or I forget who it was that had that. But anyways, so you were bringing asbestos into your lungs. Asbestos was in everything, shipyards, insulation, can still be in some products such as brakes on your car. And so it only takes one of that sliver of that fiber to get into the lung to start festering to cause that particular cancer. And it's a horrible, horrible situation. So here we are today, completely being bombarded by microwave, psychotronics, hit with chemicals, being sprayed with aluminums, the chemtrails and all the other agents, vaccines, the food additives. They know that they're doing this. So this is crimes against humanity. And who pays the price? Our children. I'm now 60. And certainly my health was affected by the chemicals that I was exposed to. And I certainly wish that I was not, because I would have had a better life. But managing and staying away from those things as much as possible is what has brought me to where I'm at. The other thing, Julie, is, the overuse of antibiotics. When I was growing up in the 60s, I was a child in the 60s, a teenager in the 70s, and boy, they were just giving everyone shots for anything or giving antibiotics for any ailment at all. And now that has really messed us up. And now we have viruses, we have germs that now can mutate that aren't even affected. It kind of reminds me like roaches. The certain chemicals they've been spraying to kill roaches for years, they're absolutely immune to it. So we're in New York and other places are having, it's an epidemic level within the sewers. So, all right, well, we're down to the last minutes here, Julie. I wanted to remind everyone again then for Scott Hensler Network, I am now going to be combining that to fully with Tinfoil Hat Club. So Julie and I will be doing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I will be doing Tuesdays and Thursdays on Tinfoil. So those shows that are on Scott Hensler Network will stay there. I'll be canceling my subscription, to save costs, but those shows will stay there and will stay downloadable. Plus, remember, I've taken all the old shows, like 250 or so of those shows, and I put them on gambling.com, which can be accessed off of Scott Hensler Network. So all of them are on there, and I painstakingly took out all the commercials. So there aren't any commercials, and brought the audio up on them, brought them up to much the speed as possible with the work that I did on it. So those are all there. So there you go. But anyways, Julie, thanks for sharing that. You talked about, your recipe for tortillas and beans. We got 1 minute. You were going to mention that. Do you want to bring it up again real quick, Julie? Go ahead.
Yes, your flour is up to you when you do that, but I would absolutely choose like an unbleached flour. That's just what I do. But anyway, and make sure that you have manteca, which is lard. We do not use Crisco, and we do not use. When I started exchanging recipes, what I found is the white folks here put baking powder. We do not use baking powder in us Hispanics, and our tortillas bubble up beautifully. And this is the best tortillas you'll ever eat, okay? I get compliments on them all the time. So I have to send one out to Lynn. He wants the recipe. And everybody, just write me, and I'll send you my recipe. It's a family recipe, man. This is the best, okay? And get your manteca, get your unbleached flour, and people say corn. Well, you don't make corn tortillas the same way you make flour ones. So if you want that recipe, that's totally different. It will not work with the corn, okay? So there you go.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So anyways, we'll be completely on here on Tinfoil Hat Club starting next week. So, all right, God bless everyone.